Hi everybody, I am James the Man's Man, and welcome to another fun, exciting episode of The Man's Kitchen. Now, today, we're going to do something different. I had an idea the other night. My wife and I were in bed watching TV. Unfortunately, yes, watching TV in bed. We were watching MasterChef Junior. And I had this idea. What if I made for you every one of their elimination challenges this season? So, on the first episode, their elimination challenge was fruit tart. So that's what I'm going to do for you. We're going to make a fruit tart today. And I'm going to follow their season, and I'm going to pump out a video every time they do an elimination challenge that's going to make it. Now, I'm not going to promise you an exact schedule that this will be out the day after or 2 days after that episode of MasterChef, because I'm already a whole week behind on this. So I'm doing this today, and hopefully tomorrow I'm going to do chicken and waffles. But I make no promises because we've got a busy life going on right now. So with that said, let's start with this fruit tart. And please remember, you can check us out on Facebook so you can get updates on when these videos come out. Now, for this fruit tart, what we're going to do, what I did first was I went online and I searched for a fruit tart recipe, and I found one that I liked. Now, on that episode of MasterChef, they did graham cracker crusts. And part of the reason for that is because of how fast it is to make a graham cracker crust, because I believe they had a 60-minute time window to do this. Now, I'm going to do a traditional pie shell because that's what I like. The reason that they couldn't get away with that is because after I get this dough ready, it's got to go in the fridge for an hour. They would have been out of time without even baking their dough. So I've got some flour in here. And really, the exact proportions aren't super important for you because I'm just showing you method. You're going to find your own recipe and read it. But just so we know, there's 1 1/4 cup of flour in here. And there's a quarter teaspoon, of sugar in here. Boom. First step's done. And if you get a little hair in it, it's fine. Just throw it out. It never happened. Now we're going to go over here to the mixer. We've got a 1/2 cup of sugar. Butter. But yes, we do have a 1/2 cup of sugar. Boom. Icing sugar, that is. And 2 egg yolks. Blomp. We're going to put these in our KitchenAid mixer. And again, I'm not sponsored by KitchenAid. I bought this out of my own pocket. KitchenAid did not send me this for free. I wish they would. I'm going to drop this in, and we're going to cream this. So that's why I chose a paddle attachment instead of a whisk. So what we're going to do is we're going to lock it down for safety, because in the man's kitchen, safety comes first. Even though I already started it. We're going to put this... So I got this on speed 4 right now. And you can see in here, we got the creaming action, the sugar. And it's easier to cream icing sugar than granulated sugar. It's creaming into the butter nicely. Now once that's fully incorporated, and I might just crank it up to 6 just for a minute or so. There we go. Once that gets to be light and floofy, it's not going to get super fluffy though, because this isn't a whisk. It's not incorporating a lot of air. And if you don't have a mixer like this, of course you can use a hand beater. And if you don't have a hand beater, I would use a wooden spoon for this job. Okay. Now, we're going to dial back the speed. Actually, we're just going to turn it off for a second. And the next step in the recipe was to add the flour, add the dry ingredients. And what it said was use either a wooden spoon or your mixer on low. Now, if you're using a hand mixer, and sometimes I know some of them are just trigger, and you only get how hard you squeeze the trigger. That might be a little difficult. Some of them have little settings, like 1 through 10, just like how this has a 1 through 10. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm gonna open this up. We're going to pour this in. Okay. We're going to lock it back in, and we're just going to put it on speed stir, which would be speed 1. At the same time, we're going to add our flavoring for the pie crust. 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. Or teaspoons, not tablespoons, 2 teaspoons. Oh. 1, 2. And now we're going to put in 1 of artificial vanilla extract. Now, Would this be better with pure vanilla extract? Of course it would. But you know what? If artificial extract is what's in your budget, like it's what's in my budget today, that's fine. Because this, what did this cost? This costs $10. 14? 3. This costs $3. Thank you, camera lady. This costs $3. And when I was at the store yesterday, I saw the little clubhouse, the little itty bitty ones about this big, of pure vanilla, and that was 14. So this is like 100 times cheaper, I think. Because that was like an ounce and a half, and this is, I don't know, a lot. This is like a 12-ounce thing, so it's, I think it's something like 30 times is the cost difference. So now that I'm done rambling on about that, if we look in here, so I'm just going to turn it up just a little bit, but we're almost there basically. I don't even think I need to turn it up. I'm just doing it because as a man, I like more power. If I can quote my favorite Tim Taylor, and we're good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to knock it all off of here. Let me take this off. Now it wants me to put this into a ball, so that's what we're going to do. Yeah, take this out. Oh yeah, that is, you don't want to work it too much, because what will happen is you'll overwork the protein molecules in the flour, and what you have to worry about in flour is you have your gluten, right? And that's what, when you hear people say they're gluten intolerant, that's what we're talking about is the gluten. Well, in the raw form, gluten isn't gluten before it's cooked, it's gliadinine. And what happens is when you overwork the gliadinine before it turns into gluten, you can actually stretch the protein strands at the cellular level, and that's what causes your dough to snap or shrink or contract or to basically just not work right. And that's why, because out of fear of potential overworking, we are going to let this rest. So since I have most of it in this ball here, one of the tricks that it doesn't always work is you just roll it around, and this should be tacky enough that it picks it off of the bowl. Now, that's not happening right now. So we're just going to scrape it up with our fingers. Okay. So this has consistency of a firm cookie dough, and it's clearly holding its shape. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take it over to the saran wrap station over here in the corner. Going to wrap it up. And we're going to put this in the refrigerator for 1 hour. And that's going to let it rest. Basically, the saran wrap's going to stop it from drying out or forming a skin. And the 1 hour, like I said, when you mix flour like that, once it gets wet with the wet ingredients, the gliadinine activates. And the gliadinine protein strands can get overworked and stretched. And it's going to create an elasticy effect on your dough. So if you try and roll it out now, it's going to snap back. So we're going to put it in the fridge for an hour, and we're going to let it relax. It needs to chill out. So we're just going to knead it together, and basically all we're going to do is just fold it over on itself a few times. But ideally, while you're doing this, you want to try and get it into a disc, because it's got to go into a round pan. Now the recipe also said that this bakes pretty easy, and that if it breaks on you in the pan, to just push it back together. So I've got this softened, and you always want to make sure you have your flour under it so it doesn't stick to your work counter. Okay? Now we take our rolling pin, get a little flour, and we're going to rub up the pin. Roll this out. And remember, when you knead stuff, when you work with doughs like this, the less you work with it, the better. Because every time you work with it, you're taking those gliadinine proteins and you're stretching them, you're activating them, you're making them do all kinds of things that are going to make it snap. So actually what we're going to do with this is after we get this rolled out, and into our pan, we're going to put this back in the fridge for half an hour Or if you have space in your freezer, you can drop it in there for 15 minutes. And then we're gonna bake it at 400 degrees. And I have no idea for how long. I'm gonna have to consult the recipe again. Okay. Boy, how am I gonna pick this up without it breaking? All right. Let's see what we have in the drawer for lifters or something. I got a fish spatula. If I go like this, I'm gonna catch it and break it. So I would go like that. Yeah, that works. Ish. Let's get our pie crust. Now, what it also suggested was one with a removable bottom. I don't have one with a removable bottom, I got a glass one. So that means we're gonna serve it in this. And you know, if you're not good at doing this, just buy it. You can get pie crusts in your freezer section, both freezer section of your grocery store. You can get them both frozen. I mean, sweetened and unsweetened. So I would get a sweetened one for this. There, up and down. Okay. So we're gonna press this in. All of our corners. Okay, so yeah, right here, this is what I was talking about. If you get any rips, like right there, just put some fresh dough on it and push it down. No biggie. And the reason that we can do that is because we're gonna put this back in the fridge and we're gonna let all the protein relax again. Because every time you work it, you need it to relax. So we're gonna take all this off the edges. A little knife. This little palette knife is good for this job. Okay, basically it's a fancy butter knife. It's not sharp at all. Okay, and then we'll just take some dough and we're gonna fix our thin spots. Now, if you have a child at home, you're used to doing this with that sound in the background too, I tell you. It's something that we as parents, we just have to get used to, right? Our kids, they want our attention sometimes. They want out of their high chairs when they throw their food around because they don't think they need to eat. They don't think we know what's better for them. Oh. And then, what do? We do silly stuff like reward them with fruit tarts. I don't know. Okay. So the nice thing is that this is going to get covered on the inside by pastry cream, so nobody's really going to see how bad you messed this up. Okay, so we got some leftover dough here. Do whatever you want with it. If you were going to make smaller ones, like individuals, you could do that, right? Instead of a big pan like this, you could use little ones. All kinds of options. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to re-saran wrap this. And we'll put this in the fridge for half an hour. Then we're going to bake it. So back to our trusty saran wrap station. Into the fridge. Alright, so we got our chilled pie crust out of the fridge. It's nice and relaxed. I let it sit on the counter for a few minutes. Since I'm using a glass bowl, I didn't want to throw it straight into the hot oven out of the fridge. We're gonna throw that in there for about 15 minutes or until it starts to brown. We can make our pastry cream now, and what this recipe wants me to do is to put my sugar, cornstarch, flour. So we had a 3/4 cup of sugar, 2 tablespoons of cornstarch, 4 teaspoons of flour, 4 egg yolk and 1 whole egg. Now it wants me to add, I have a cup of milk here, it wants a 1/4 cup of milk. Then whisk it all together. And it said to do this off the heat. Then add the rest of the milk. Cream, 35%. And you know, it called for 1 vanilla bean. Not everyone's going to spend the money on a vanilla bean. They're pretty expensive. So if you have to use artificial vanilla extract, then this is about 1 vanilla bean's worth. 2 good shakes. We're going to whisk this all together. We're going to go to a medium heat. I'm going to put it on the stove top and we're going to whisk it up for about 8 minutes. We're going to keep this going. Then, for the 9th minute, we're going to simmer it gently. This is going to, everything's going to basically come together at that point, and then what we're going to do is, there's a 1/4 cup of cold butter in the fridge that's diced up. We're going to drop that in after, and that's going to shock it. It's going to rapidly bring the temperature down because it's cold, and it's going to add a velvety richness because it's butter. The process is very similar to when you're making a beurre blanc. So I'm not going to waste your time with 8 minutes of me stirring this, but this is basically what I'm going to be doing for the next 8 minutes. Okay, so after 8 minutes of stirring on medium and then a minute on low simmer, this is what we have, a nice thick cream. So the next step is we're going to set this on the counter. Now with this recipe, I felt safe doing it. It did say you should you can cook the pie shell and then while it cools, make the pastry cream. But then it also said after you combine the two to let it sit for 6 hours. So I feel relatively safe doing this while the pie shell's in the oven. So now we're gonna add our cool butter, cube at a time. So if you're going to use a non-stick pot, then you need to find yourself a Teflon coated or plastic whisk. Because if you're going to do this in a non-stick pot with a metal whisk, you're going to scrape all that Teflon coating and you might not taste it today, but if you keep using that pot for something like that, you're eventually going to taste it and you're going to strip all the non-stick out of your pot. So that's why, since I have a stainless whisk, I chose to use a stainless pot. Get that last piece in. There. So now, if you were using the vanilla bean, you would pull the bean out at this point and discard it, and you would have all the seeds in there. I'm kind of curious what it tastes like. That's really good. So let's check the pie shell, see if it's ready to come out. Yeah, it's starting to get... Now it said for 15 minutes, it's only been in for about 10. The recipe said for 15 minutes or until it starts to brown. Make sure you grab a rag thick enough that you're not going to burn yourself. So we're just going to sit this here. We're going to let that cool for 10 or 15 minutes. We're going to pour all this in there and we're going to huck it in the fridge. And then we need to let it sit for 6 hours before we decorate it. So all I'm gonna do is let this sit for 10 and 15 minutes while I make breakfast. Gonna pour this in there and put it in the fridge. I don't know if I need to show you that part because it's just literally gonna be this with a spatula. And then I'll see you in 6 hours when we decorate the cake. All right, so it's been about 6 hours and we have our set custard in our bowl. And what we're gonna do now is we're gonna start layering some fruit on. I pre-cut everything here. If you wanna see some videos on cutting some fruit, you can always go back to my epic fruit tray video that I posted last year. So we're just gonna layer this on. If I knew how to time lapse this, I would, but I don't, so I guess you're stuck watching me in real time. So we have our first layer of strawberries. Now we're gonna go with some kiwis, because I like strawberries and kiwis. And we're just gonna go around again. We're gonna make the full circle here off of the kiwis. Okay, now we made it around with the kiwis. I think we got enough strawberries here. We can go in one more time with the strawberries. Okay. So in the microwave behind me, I put a 1/3 cup of apricot jam with 2 tablespoons of water. And I gave it a 30-second blast. Now, we're going to take this, we're going to strain it. Okay, we're just going to use this brush here to help push this through. Okay, and this is going to be our apricot glaze. So, and there's a reason I'm leaving the center empty is because after we brush this on, let this glaze up, I'm going to take the blueberries, put them in the bowl, and I'm going to toss them in the glaze. And I'm going to pour the blueberries in the center. But for this part here, I'm going to slap this all on with this brush. Okay. Now we'll take some blueberries. Mix them up. And pour them in. And there, we have our completed fruit tart. Now, on MasterChef, I think they had a 1-hour time limit to make their fruit tart. Mine obviously took me 2 days. They used a graham cracker crust, I believe, on that episode, and they did that because time constraint, right? I made a real pie shell. I had to let it rest for half an hour after I made the dough. I had to let it rest again for a full hour after I made the dough, and then another half hour after I got it into here. So it was 90 minutes of total rest time, plus another 20 minutes of bake time puts you at, what's that, 110 minutes, and then time to make the dough. So about 2 hours. You got locked into here about 2 hours of your life just to make the pie shell. And then, after we got the pastry cream in it, we had another 6 hours to let the cream set. And now this is where we're at here. So you're looking at about 8.5 hours of total time. But you're probably only looking at about half an hour of actual time in the kitchen. So I think this thing looks amazing, and let's cut up a slice and try it. Okay, so let's give this a cut. So on a pie like this, I'm going to cut it into 10. If you're going to cut something into 10, what you want to do is you want to cut right down the center. Then you have to imagine your first slice and just kind of wing it. But after you just kind of winged your first slice, what you can do is now you have 2 pieces here of 1 slice each, and you have 2 giant pieces, so you can half those. And then you still have your 2 1 slice pieces here. Now you have 2 slices of 4 slices here. Well, you cut those in half again, and you should get close to 10 equal slices. Okay, and there. Now I got a plate for myself and my trusty camera wife. Let's get our pie lifter in here. Oh, there we go. That's good. That's really good. So I will post the link in the description to where I got the recipe from. I got this actually from ricardo.com.ca. something. I'll post a link in the description below where I got this recipe from. And probably sometime tomorrow, I'm going to try and do the chicken and waffle video. I will get both of these up before the next episode of MasterChef Junior. That way I'm only 1 episode, I won't be 2 episodes behind when I shoot these. Thank you everybody, and I hope you enjoy making your own fruit tarts.